For hundreds and thousands of years, intertribal wars have been fought between Native American groups, taking the form of large-scale battles, smaller skirmishes, or even personal duels. Most of these conflicts are lost to history, as the majority of North American tribes have no written language in which to record these events. But we do have a precious few first-hand accounts that we can study and learn from. Today we'll be talking about one such account between the Cheyenne and the Crow, two prominent Northern Plains tribes and fierce enemies. Today's account comes from the book The Fighting Cheyennes by George Bird Grinnell. It is not known exactly when the Crows and Cheyennes began to fight, but in a quote from the book, Lewis and Clark in 1804 saw at the Arikara village some Cheyennes who had with them Crow prisoners. The American explorers recorded that the Cheyennes were then at war with the Crows. This particular clash between the tribes took place in 1819, with a group of 32 Cheyenne warriors, most of them being from one of the Cheyennes' famed warrior societies, the Crooked Lance Soldiers. They headed west into Crow country, in search of revenge, war honors, horses, and the social prestige that all of these things would bring. While traveling through some mountainous terrain, the Cheyenne warriors came across a lone Crow scout, who was in advance of a nearby Crow camp. After a short chase, the Crow scout was rode down and killed. Not long after, a large force of Crows from the nearby camp appeared and charged the Cheyennes, who, being outnumbered, retreated to the top of a nearby hill. There were 3 Crow camps in the area. Runners were sent to each one, and soon the Crows had surrounded the hill on all sides. There was no such thing as surrender in Plains warfare, with only young children and women being taken as captives, to eventually be adopted into the tribe or live out the rest of their lives as slaves. But for fighting-age males, there was no mercy given or expected. Warriors could only hope to die fighting, as being taken alive would mean a torturous and slow death. The Cheyennes knew this and fought fiercely from the top of the hill, shooting down with their guns and bows. The next part of the story comes from later Crow accounts, as none of the Cheyennes would survive the day. It's said that there was a certain Crow warrior who had crept up the hill and was shooting at the Cheyennes from behind a rock, and had already killed several. The Cheyennes pointed out this Crow to one of their warriors who had a gun. The warrior laid on the ground and aimed at the rock, and when the Crow again raised his head to shoot, the warrior shot him in the forehead, killing him instantly. The Cheyenne warrior then sang a war song and held his rifle up to the sun. He struck the butt of his rifle into the ground, then fired and killed the Crow. 4 times he did this and killed 4 Crows. Later, during more peaceful times, the Crow wanted to know who this brave warrior was, and asked the Cheyenne. By repeating the war song to his people, the Cheyenne were able to identify it as the war song of the man One-Eyed Antelope. The trapped Cheyennes fought that first day and night, and even into the next day. But by the end of the second day, they had run out of bullets and arrows. Knowing they could no longer hold back the Crows, and unwilling to die as cowards, the Cheyennes drew their knives and tomahawks, and with furious yells charged down the hill. Being fierce and proud warriors themselves, the Crows met the charge head-on, and a vicious hand-to-hand battle ensued. After the dust had settled, and the moans of the dying had been cut off, all of the Cheyenne were dead. Although 2 members of the original Cheyenne war party, who had been sent to scout for enemies before the Crow had been encountered, had watched the battle from a distance, and were able to relate the tragic news to the families of their slain comrades. 25 Crows were killed in the final melee, with this battle adding fuel to the fire that was the decades-long blood feud between the Crows and the Cheyennes.